I want someone to join first because we want to conduct the sound check. Sound check, sound check, sound check. Good Sir Fry, hello, can you hear me? Sound check clear. Great. Awesome. Thank you everyone who joined right in. Thank you everyone for checking in. And today we're going to... There's sound. Awesome. So today's topics I'm proposing. But again, we start with something and then we move on as audience pulls up. So the first topic that I'm proposing is to continue on the issue that was brought up by our new friend. I think S95 brought it up. How to leave the dysfunctional system. The thing is, just today, this morning, I had an idea, an awesome idea that I also practiced. So I really hope that our new friend joins in and we can cover that topic. How to leave a dysfunctional system. And the trick there will be that we don't need to actually run back and forth between them. There is actually a psychological trick that you can use to perform that act of, remember we're talking about withdrawing your treasure. Remember we had this thing, this compounding thing, where everyone just donates their treasure to. And they become kind of paralyzed because they really depend on this treasure because they cannot access theirs. They just all dump it down to this dysfunctional system. People dump this energy here. And for the person who feels like this system doesn't work for them, how to withdraw, how to remove themselves from that. And the claim that I made was that when you get access, when you find access to your treasure, that you surrender to some dysfunctional codependent system, for example, dysfunctional relationships, dysfunctional whatever, family, institution, whatever it may be, this treasure is exactly what you need to succeed in other areas of your life that, for example, right now are kind of sinking. So it works, it has this not just like +1 effect, it has this multiplication effect because this treasure is needed elsewhere for a breakthrough. So not only you will harvest this energy, but this energy also will enter some synergistic system. So this is one of the things that I want to discuss today. And the second topic that I want to bring up today, let's do how to write two flipped like this. This is how we write two. The second one I want to talk about is archetypes. Very important tantric thing. Kiva knows in which step of 13 steps of tantra we're discussing our archetypes. We're discussing the facets of sexuality. That's the term that spans far beyond sexuality. Let's even talk about vitality. Let's substitute sexuality with vitality for here, for this context. So, facets of sexuality. But today I wanted to talk about the things that we object, hate, find dysfunctional, are traumatized by. How to flip the script. How to actually start functionalizing them. So, number 2 is facets of vitality. Or sexuality. So this will be our second topic. Thank you, Kiva. We're happy that you're interested. So everyone who joined, thank you so much for checking in the chat. For those who are new here, we start uncovering the topics and then I'm going through the chat and I'm answering your questions. If you have any, I'm a Tantra Coach, Tantra Therapist, and I am going to take your questions, I'm going to analyze, study your issues, and I'm going to propose you solutions. So feel free to drop your stories the moment you feel comfortable, the moment you find that we vibe, the moment you find that what I'm talking about is actually relevant for you. So let's begin. I hope that S25 joins us, or S95. I don't remember the handle name. But we're going to study this, how to leave dysfunctional system. Imagine you live in a household in which it appears like every time you enter some cycle, every time you enter this cycle, that everyone does something fun, everybody rejoices, and then a couple of days later everybody is irritated, everyone accumulated tension, then they start spitting their aggression, then they start making some comments, and you notice that out of nowhere there are some conflictogens that suddenly turn into full-blown scandals, into full-blown drama. And you realize that, for example, your mental health or your pursuit of something in life, they get very significantly affected by the fact that you're coexisting with a system that constantly shatters your environment. You constantly see that you live on this volcano that's about to erupt. So you think of, okay, for a creative mind, for a person who has a lot of aspirations, who lives a constructive life, on the one hand, you find yourself sucked into this system emotionally. You find related, you find like some spark. It's very interesting to engage with some of this drama, but on the other hand, you notice that 1 day, 2 days, 3 days are wasted to nothing, to just interacting with this pointless drama that somehow sucks you in. And you feel like in the night you're thinking how this person could have acted better, how that person could have acted better, how you should have responded better to some conflict that suddenly erupts out of nowhere. And you feel like you cannot just step away from the system. You don't want to become a hermit. You still need to keep interacting with people. For example, you get some benefit from the system, but you're constantly sucked there. You're constantly returned back to the system that pumps your energy, that just shatters your peace. You just started doing something interesting, something creative. You just got into something that requires your investment of your energy and focus. The next moment there is something unsolicited intervention, an invitation for you to enter some system. So this is what this illustration constitutes here. Those dysfunctional systems, thank you so much for the gift. By the way, guys, like this stream. This is an illustration of such system. Every participant donates something very important into the system to keep it going. And these people, they cannot access something important of this. They become blind to existence of this thing. This can be their energy, this can be their sub-persona, and this is how first topic will tie to facets of vitality, sexuality today. It can be some persona that you are not willing to face. And this system, this dysfunctional system that drains your energy, that pulls this energy, violently pulls this energy out of you, this system may, in fact, and that was my today's idea that I actually practiced, the system, in fact, can be trying to agitate you enough to actually face this persona, to put you in the conditions in which it becomes almost inevitable for you to face some important thing that you've been needing all along. Because when you are in this system, it's very, on the other hand, convenient to not execute on something that you've always wanted. It may be really convenient for you to blame the system. For example, that's my parents, for example, are doing this to me. I have this childhood trauma, whatever. You're interacting with the system, and it seems like the responsibility is in their court, but no, in fact, you might be just hiding in the system. There could be secondary benefit. The system can make you, can give you some comfort of familiarity and whatnot. But this exact system, you pay a very expensive price, very high price to be a part of it, to get the secondary benefit, without you being able to play effectively and walk your own path, like we discussed in the yesterday's stream. There's also a choice. Do I want to sink in my trauma, let's say childhood trauma, or do I want to sink in some drama, or do I want to walk my path? there's this choice. Right now, in this moment, I'm presented with an opportunity to spend 3 hours of my life, or 5 hours of my life, or I can spend my night sleeping peacefully, or I can spend 2 hours of my precious sleep time thinking about some nonsense, being in total agitation with adrenaline pumping, being completely unrested the next day, and not being able to perform the next day. Or today, 5 hours, where will I invest my 5 hours of attention? Where will I invest my 5 hours of time? Where will I invest my energy over the course of 5 hours? And we know that time and energy oftentimes are slightly interchangeable, with some correction factor, of course, with some limitations. So where will I invest them? Where will my mental power will go? To feed this system, to interface with the system, to bear the consequences of the system, because I get some secret secondary benefit that I'm not aware of? Or will I take these 5 hours or that energy and actually will do something that's truly important to me? So what will I do? This is the choice that we're facing, and that's why we have this fork. Where will I go? Will I walk my path? Or where? Or whether I will feed the system. And the goal of the system is to exist. The goal of the system is to pump energy. Those systems, they're not self-sustainable. Those systems are short-circuited. If you watched my other streams, you would know what it means. This is a short-circuited system. It relies on the external sources of energy. It relies on external support systems. So the more people contribute their treasure into the system, the better for the system, the more resilient it is. And yes, of course, secondary benefit can be very deeply rooted. Our secondary benefit can be truly animalistic. And the secondary benefit can be, for example, feeling of belonging or feeling of some perceived security. For example, I feel like maybe in 10 years I will need to fall back on these people right now. Maybe they will provide me actual physical security. So, there could be this idea that I myself, I won't keep up. I myself, I won't be able to sustain, survive, and whatnot. So invest my treasure into the system, hoping that there will be some return in the future, that some one day in the future, the system will help me, will save me. There could be an idea like this. Because, for example, I was shown growing up that I'm not capable of solving my problems. Get out, I will do it myself. Little child, go play toys. Don't learn. Don't exercise. You will mess up. I don't want you to mess up. So get off here. You maybe learned this attitude, and now you want to fall back on some authoritative system to take care of you, because you yourself don't feel like you can do it. So you enter this system on the base of some secondary benefits, something very animalistic, something very primal, something perhaps very childish. So what to do, how to exit the system? First of all, you're likely not aware of this treasure. You're likely aren't aware or connected with what it is that you're donating to the system besides just perceived energy and time. So you can read it as energy, you can read it as time. What else though? How do we actually convert this energy and time into something usable, into some tools that we may have? Okay, I will gain this energy back, but I don't know how to invest it. I don't know how to use it, how to actually access it, this energy. It's behind the wall. It's behind the wall because the system makes it skews everything, makes it invisible, makes it incomprehensible for me. So, we have energy, time, some other resources, this treasure. But in fact, I don't know what it constitutes. So how can I value this treasure? How can I fight for this treasure if I don't understand what it is? Today I will propose a tool for you to be able to understand that. The second step is how to actually leave the system. Well, hello. How actually leave the system? How to become an autonomous entity that can electively interface with the system, but not actually be sucked into the system. So how do we do that? Please hit like, guys. Whoever's joining, please hit like. So, how to actually exit the system? This is the big question of ours. How are we actually leaving this system? What I am proposing for this action. At this point, we are going to perform the following. The system, first step that we need to do when we work with the system is to recognize the patterns that exist in it. Recognize patterns. Why recognition of patterns is important for us here? Recognition of pattern is very important to actually become aware of the system, because sometimes you might not be even aware that the system exists. You may think that people who participate in this system, they act intelligently. They act from the standpoint of knowledge, of their best intentions, that they actually put weight into their actions and thoughts, that they're acting with awareness. In reality, what happens is that the system exists on different laws. People who are sucked into the system, they're running in cycles. They're running in vicious cycles. People who are joining, please hit like. So they're in the cycles. The goal of the system is to suck energy out, suck resources, and to retain the system. So those people, they are in predictable cycles, cyclical behavior that's not aware. And when you recognize the pattern that certain actions, certain scenarios, they always repeat, you will realize that the system indeed exists and individual will there doesn't matter. There is no active will. There is just some impulsive behavior that feeds energy into the system. You need to acknowledge that there is impulse, and lack of awareness. That's word is automations. Impulse, automations. Impulse automations are the things that will point to you that there is a pattern, that the system exists. Through understanding, observing, you need to be analytical, you need to see, for example, on Thursday, these and these people, they stroke this conversation. On Friday, the result was that they had some eruption of certain conflict. On Saturday, I saw that this one person started manipulating. On Sunday, I saw how the other person surrendered to manipulation. On Monday, I noticed that they started introducing me into their triangulation. So I suddenly became a part on Monday. I became a part of some trouble. Then I feel weight of responsibility. On Tuesday, I feel this weight. On Wednesday, I try rebelling against it, but I realize that people are completely unaware what's happening. On Thursday, I get very upset. I have a tantrum. I want to have a breakdown. And on Friday, I see that there is a release and I am suddenly a bad guy for the responsibility that I was forced into seemingly. So you recognize the pattern, you write down in your mind, even like you just revisit, that certain actions, certain behaviors, they are just repeating. Because you notice that the next week the cycle repeats. You need to be very mindful about triangulations of victim, prosecutor, and savior, like this. How these roles swap all the time. And that will be your sufficient proof of the existence of this ill system. Because these triangular shapes, triangular interactions, they have no purpose other than pulling energy for attention of the system. When we talk about functional systems, they have external purpose. In comparison, a functional system has always some constructive purpose. This system is destructive, and it's focus is retention and harvesting of energy. This is the difference. This is what defines the dysfunctional system. Now, you've recognized the pattern. You've recognized the pattern. For you, it became clear that the system exists. You understand that for whatever reason, you may not understand it yet. How much is improvised and how much is planned in great detail? I mean, what I'm saying is mostly is improvised. The core is I thought about it. So, now, you might not understand yet your role in detail, what your role is. Maybe you already have some concept, but you don't understand why you're in the system, and it bothers you. You're like, I want to get out of this system, but I don't understand how, because, for example, I depend on the system somehow. But there is a way to become emotionally neutral to it. There is definitely a way. I want you to be aware. I want you to feel assured that there's always a way to find this treasure and withdraw it while keeping the possibility of interaction with the system. And this is our target. This is our goal today. To withdraw from the system in a way that still will allow you to interact with the system and get the benefits without donating your energy, donating something very important. Energy, time, treasure into the system at all times, such that you can function in and out of the system. Because again, we cannot just turn into hermits in which we isolate ourselves from the society. So, what I'm proposing is, when you've observed enough of this system, approach it from the perspective of a art house movie filmmaker, and treat the system in a way that how you would make a very absurd, comedic, and dark movie out of it. What will this practice do? First of all, you will be very mindful in that scenario of how your brain interprets the scenario that are being replayed in this system. You will be able to use them. You will be able to see how your brain will extrapolate these scenarios into some fantasy. Second thing is that in that process, creative process of creating a super absurd, comedic, dark, art house movie with the participation of the members of the system, you will be able to identify the most hurtful point for yourself. Because that's where your attention will be drawn the most. This is when you will have the most ideas pumping. This is where your brain will be firing up with most emotion, with most imagery. For example, you observe that, let's say, your sister constantly goes into some addictive relationships or codependent relationships, always plays a victim, and always ask your parents for money, for example. And they cannot say no. Because, for example, they're really worried about your sister's choice. Your sister is an adult person, and she lives with some, I don't know, addicts, with whoever. With some guys who are very, very troubled. So she's always presenting herself as that she's in trouble. Your parents get connected with this system, and they constantly play this role of that, how poor sister, so poor, it's so unfortunate for her. And at the same time, your parents, for example, demand you to give them money to sponsor that sister who makes all of these choices because of her dysfunction. And you somehow are boiling in this system and you want to withdraw from it. So we have what characters we have in that sense. We have mother, we have father, we have your sister and her dependencies. Some guys, whatever, alcohol, whatever it may be. And then there is you, whatever your gender is. Draw as a rectangle. So your parents are constantly trying collectively to save your sister. Perhaps there's also conflict between them because they have different opinions on how your sister should live and whether they should help her. And then you become this person who is supposed to donate your resources into the system. Here we can also put money, actually. Or like this. So you become the participant of this nonsense system that expects you to give money to the sister in exchange of being a good person, for example. Or your parents require you to take sides, whether you are supporting or not supporting, you're supporting your father, you're supporting your mother with their sentiments. Then your sister comes to you and showcases something, how she struggles and so on. So you're in this triangle. What can you do with that particular scenario? Make a movie about it. Make a movie. How your sister gets pregnant from one of these guys who are alcoholics or addicts whatever situation there is. How your sister gets pregnant. And for example, to bring it to the absurdity degree, bring up the absurdity, your parents are asking you to take care of the child, to fully sponsor the child. You are in this position in which your dad, for example, starts drinking from all of this situation because he's so crushed. Your mom is crying, pulling her 401ks to support this system demonstratively, saying that we need to save our sister, your sister. And this is why, because you are not willing to give your all money because you have a good job. You need to, I will be pulling 401ks, and I think we will also need to sell the house and move into a smaller place. And so your mom plays this thing, your dad is drinking somewhere in grief, or tries to leave the family, or becomes this aggressor, tries to pitch in somehow, and then there's a fall apart family altogether. Your sister is like with this baby, and learns that she's expecting twins. Her drunk boyfriend breaks in the house, steals something from your mom. The accusations fall on your dad or on you. Bring it to the super absurdity. This is the goal. Make the most ridiculous movie out of this story. How the system will play if it keeps growing. And you become now, you can withdraw yourself, you're becoming a filmmaker, you're becoming a designer. For you, it unfolds in the most absurd form. For you, it unfolds in the most laughable, ridiculous thing. And because you were able to extrapolate this story, your brain reads it as you are now in control. You understand the system. So through doing this practice, you reinforce that you recognize patterns. So when you are creating a movie, it means that you're solidifying the understanding of existence of patterns. That does not leave you any choice, because now you can actually make a step forward and not only see this system from within. You are able to step out and create some add-ons to it. You are able to analyze it so well that you're able to create something on the basis of that. This principle we use in research a lot. When I was in the grad school, one of our first big exams, qualification exams, it relied on the same exact principle. We were assigned some random paper. For example, I was in the grad school for microsystems engineering, which encompasses quantum physics, material science, device engineering. And I suddenly got assigned from my solid state 3.5 semiconductor field, I was assigned a paper that was working on some organic materials for some biodegradable batteries or whatnot. So in 2 weeks, I needed to come up with research that is add-on to the paper that I was provided to analyze. So this is how you gain comprehensive understanding of things. Comprehensive understanding of things through actually being able to create something on top of the thing that you analyzed. So recognizing the pattern, and we move step up and we solidify this knowledge by making an absurd movie out of it. Absurd art house movie. As I presented in this example, your sister in codependent relationships gets pregnant. Her boyfriend steals something from your mom. Then the father goes drinks. Your mom accuses you, demonstratively pulls out her 401k, sells the house, and threatens you to disown you as a daughter if you don't pitch in because you're making good money. And or secretly opens a new credit line on your name without your awareness. Bring it to that degree. And then, through actually immersing in this experience, they're actually playing this game, this little imaginative game of creating a movie out of this situation. What happens? You will no longer be able to return to your belief or naive hope that this system could give you something, that this system could be of any benefit, because you saw not only the big picture, but you also saw where it's all headed. You also saw the risks. You also saw that how the system can deeply screw you up. And from that, you cannot unsee this anymore. Now, when you are going to the system, you're going to literally perceive it as a filmmaker seeking inspiration. As a filmmaker just watching the thing unfold. And you know what? When you make another thing, when you make this absurd movie, another thing that will happen is you will crank up your aggression. You will crank up your creative force fueled by the system. And the side effect here, the amazing thing, will be that you will get your treasure. That filmmaker that you will face, that you will suddenly embody, that filmmaker will be the bearer of that treasure. So, connect, sit with it, sit with that filmmaker, sit with that energy that you are getting from it. So this is the practice for how to withdraw yourself from a dysfunctional system. Put yourself in the role of a filmmaker that is capable of designing the add-ons, the developmental paths for that system, who is capable of turning this situation into absolute havoc. And see also what other thing will happen is, with that imaginative experiment, with this creative process, you will also see so many possible political leverages that you may have in the system. You may come with so many fun scenarios of how you can smartly act, or not smartly, maybe even malevolently act, if you wanted to, on the system. You will see the vulnerabilities of the systems. You will see where it can actually screw itself up. And so what happens is that when you're in this filmmaker state, you can understand how the system is literally flushing itself down the toilet from a little intervention that doesn't work on that. How empowering is that when you feel this dependence? Now you don't. You feel that the system depends on you. You can come up with 5 different fun scenarios of how you could screw the system up. And it's not about the people who are participants in the system. Those people are belonging to the system with their very unaware facet. They are not performing there with their intelligence. They are themselves, without awareness, suffering from that system as well. And you are going to know exactly how, why, and how to withdraw yourself from it, and how to screw the system up, if you wanted to, by performing this exercise. Absurdity Absurdity is our magical tool. Absurdity, bringing things to extremes, is something that is such a phenomenal tool in any mental work. Because in absurdities, we start producing energy. In general, in Tantra, we always are looking for the driving forces where we feel the most energy, the most impulse. Because how to get inspired by eating, for example, healthy. We cannot get inspired by just eating healthy. We're inspired by the consequences of eating healthy. If we need to break some habits, because healthy foods, not everyone feels them as tasty right away. For me, it's not a problem because I've been practicing those things for a while, and I grew up eating healthy, natural food, so I have a taste for that. But for someone who is coming from MSG, for example, diet, MSG loaded diet, then for them it will be a little bit more difficult. So they need the motivation and the impulse to do it that is on the plane that's a little bit step ahead from just eating healthy. So we bring it to some super exciting thing that will have that driving force. And here we do the same thing. We bring it to the exciting degree, to absurdity that gives you drive. You know, you start feeling either very, very, very hilarious about it. You will find that it's so laughable, so ridiculous. The system is so ridiculous. Or you will feel adrenaline. You will feel that, like, no. You suddenly feel your boundaries. When you bring it to absurdity, you will find your boundaries. So your boundary will be found. How you can defend, how you can find your treasure there. Where you will not allow this to happen. Because you don't want to surrender half of your salary to that sister who makes very bad choices in life. No. You don't want to be soothing your dad or soothing your mom with some promises that you won't be able to keep without stepping on yourself, stepping on your interests, stepping on your boundaries. So that's something that's very important to keep in mind. And this is this trend, the power of this practice of absurdity. So, let's see the chat. And also hit like. Whoever is joining, please hit like. So we have some comments that are, I guess, going along. But I want to see... It's actually a great take. The motivation of the future, not the present. But exciting one. Brought to extreme. Brought to the most exciting point. I was a filmmaker in the 90s. When I was 30-something, I got taken to federal court. Sure. If a girl like this threatens your manhood, you need to ask yourself if you're gay. Yeah, there's some interesting... Yeah, hello. Hello. There are very interesting conversations happening there. I'm not gonna read them. So, this was our first part to this conversation. Now with this filmmaker, what is that? Smuggerson, get out of here. So, the second part of our conversation now is facets of vitality or facets of sexuality. Oh my god, why are there so many trolls in the comments at the Med House open house? Yeah, it's today is a little bit strange. I don't know, maybe, actually, I noticed that short titles to live streams actually perform better. Today I put 2 titles, and I think it just skews the algorithm. I don't know what happens. Okay, being the filmmaker, I get, but how to apply to leave the specific sister system? So to leave the specific sister system, you cannot leave it, you cannot just, for example, leave it, and you don't want to cut ties with everyone. I understand your question at this moment. Your main forte is to gain clarity. Because the system, what it does, it plays on your impulsive nature yourself, whatever impulses you have, whatever role the system designed for you, whatever role you signed up for. It plays on your impulsive reactions. Impulsive reactions is when we cannot calculate the second step, when we cannot calculate 2 steps in advance. When we, for example, even if you understand what's happening with the system, if you are not calm, if you don't own this treasure, what are you going to do? You're going to defend yourself through aggression. You're going to be like, Mom, no, don't do this, don't say this, or I'm not gonna do this. You're going to be still feeding it, because then if you, for example, try to set your boundary emotionally, what happens is that you will be still participating in the system, because then after this tantrum you will feel ashamed. Everyone will look at you like, unexpected, it was so rotten of you. Everybody will give you that glance, and you will feel like you are the bad guy, and for hours afterwards you are going to feel that you did something wrong. The system will be fed again. So we need to find a state in which you are going to be unbothered by the system and will actually be able to have fun with it, to have fair exchange with it, without yourself being seduced into impulsive, automated behaviors. So that's what we're striving for. And the filmmaker doesn't go and experience the drama that the actors are experiencing on stage or showcasing on stage, following the script of the filmmaker. You are managing this whole situation. You see the full picture. You are watching it unfold, and you are controlling and curating it. What effects it will have in each specific case, however, is very individual. Whatever this filmmaker archetype is going to be, to me it actually awakens some Machiavellian, let's say, Machiavellian impulses that belong to my shadow. And that's we're slowly drifting to point 2 here today. That at the same time allow me to be creatively free, surprisingly. When I'm not just getting hurt by people's attitudes. I'm not just being hurt by people not understanding certain things. But I become an artist who can depict that, who can channel it through some high energy activities. So, this is how it plays with me. I, for myself, unlock surprisingly creative freedom. Because creativity can be, I can manipulate matter, or I can manipulate others, which is management. I can manipulate the events. These are all from the plane of creativity. This is all leadership. This is all me taking responsibility for processes. So, when you embrace this creative freedom for yourself, it can allow you more ideas, breadth of thinking on how you can act in other areas of life. So through this system, through this practice, you are going to unlock the whole skill set, or allow yourself the whole skill set. Because what differentiates you from people who still remain in the system? There's something about you that craves you to exit the system. But at the same time, you have some affinity to the system. which means that you have biological predisposition to be able to free yourself from the system with all of the awareness that you've developed. So there is some element of inevitability if you actually embrace and go through with this idea that you can be a filmmaker, that you can exercise. When you observe how system functions, you will observe that it is political, that it is inherently not human sincere interaction. It is not. It is a very ill manipulative system. And you will get the permission to exercise more strategic and more free behavior when you acknowledge that your childish, naive expectations are not met by the system. The world doesn't operate on the matter of our ideals, of people interacting sincerely in the best interest of everyone. It doesn't happen this way. So you're withdrawing yourself with knowledge, following the impulse that you need to exit the system with new skill. I saw some rebellious. So, as a very butchered summary, first gain a top-level understanding of the issue and then avoid any impulsive behavior because it feeds the system. That you will avoid the need to exercise impulsive behavior. You will understand that the system inherently doesn't act in your best interests or best interests of any participant. You will see that the system is organism in itself. It's not worth investing so much of yours into trying to fix the system, into trying to help people in the system, because all of your treasure just gets lost in the soup and gets dissipated. And yes, then you yourself you need to extract the personality facet that allows you to not interface with the system, interact with it, that empowers you to be invincible to the system, that will be invincible or largely invincible. Of course, it's not a bulletproof or foolproof thing 100% of the time, but you will find something in you that allows you to be invincible to be provoked for impulsive, automated behavior here. So, that's our objective here. So now we found this filmmaker. Let's erase this thing, and I guess we'll move on to the... I'm talking back to this video, so my grandma thinks I'm talking too late. That's fine. Let's now go back to our newly discovered treasure here. Through this unfavorable situation, or multitude of other unfavorable situations, like we talked about in the video about how to use people, this was the most painful situation for you. And now you've met that filmmaker. Now you've met that artist who is capable of creativity that expands beyond your habitual range, in which you had some restraint, in which you felt like, nah, maybe I won't be doing this, maybe it's not appropriate, maybe I should wait, maybe I should become better, maybe I should do something, maybe I should deserve something better, maybe I should try harder. No. You now discover this treasure, this, in our case, filmmaker, creator, this very powerful, that has a lot more freedom than a submitted, pitiful creature that was a member of the system, that was constantly shaken by the system in order to prevent them from actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. You have inspired me to write my film. Excellent. What about other things? This Through pain, it's a very cool way of, how I say, we take shit, we grow peaches. We take some shitty situation, we discover something powerful. But what if there's more to us than just this one archetype that was needed through the critical situation that we've encountered? By the way, Marek, please like this stream if you don't mind. Take shit and grow peaches. Yes, yes, exactly. Fertilization. Facets of vitality, sexuality. This one was forced upon you through some pain that was very prominent. But there are other discomforts that point to you that you have more to yourself, in fact. For example, that girl who behaves so flirtatiously, that you find so stupid and gross, unnatural, could be one of these. That guy who freely expresses himself in some dance genre that's not typically manly, makes you feel like emasculated creature, but at the same time so appealing. Maybe it's one of these. Maybe it is some, I don't know, Scandinavian super powerful man who's such a tough guy who you secretly admire, but you think that, and you secretly compare yourself with. Maybe it is a super ambitious, powerful woman who achieves so much in the world, who irritates you so much because she speaks so openly about her achievements. She talks about herself so highly. She goes online and she describes everything that she's done. People are asking for her interviews because she did some breakthrough, some amazing thing. And you feel like, I can't stand the way she talks, or I can't handle these people. They're fake, they're flashy, they're too arrogant. So you meet all of those little things that become those that poke you, that give you this feeling of like, I don't want that. It's so weird. Or I'm envying them. I'm jealous. I can't handle it. It's like my teeth itch when I see those people. So you get all of these sophisticated feelings, all of these conflicting emotions from encountering these people, these situations. Or you find that someone is so gross, such a victim. Ugh. So what do we do with that? Whenever we talk about, if you really hate something, be a part of it and tear it down from the inside, or watch it change with love. That's a good way to put it, perhaps one of the methods. But what happens? We normally have, let's draw it as boxes here. We normally have certain hierarchy of desired. Where is, this is D. I need to be backwards. So. Desired, then good, neutral, then bad, disgusting. So we can put a lot of our a lot of human traits and our perceptions of traits into these categories. We can rank them from desired to good to neutral, bad, and disgusting, straight away disgusting. And in Tantra, we strive to do something like this instead. Each of these constitutes some assortment of human archetypes, traits, that we either aspire to have or we find very bad. In Tantra, we want to do the following. We want to flip this hierarchy into just our tools. We want to turn them into toolbox. And here I wish we had more audience today because I want to do something interactive. It would be an interesting experience to actually play this game with people because I want your guys' ideas here. But whoever is listening attentively, you can do this with me. Today I guess I did something with the algorithm that didn't bring a lot of people. Let's think, for example, about some completely... Yeah, agreement. I think most of our friends must be busy. Yeah, but we can do this when once we establish the workshops for core audience. We can actually start doing closed workshops for our core audience, and where everyone can participate, and we can have conversations. If we conduct it on Zoom, then we can work with conversation as opposed to just chat. So it will be pretty cool. So here the interactive part that would be interesting would be the following. We think about certain people that are completely gross, that affected us in some very negative way. Something that pisses off so much. We can think about those people. We can think about different sexual, for example, attitudes that exist and that cause you to feel this. Oh my God. We can think about things that we can put in the category of bad. We can also think about certain traits, just personality traits that we're indifferent to, but it's actually pretty hard. Then we think, what are the good, benevolent traits that humans have? And desired. What are desired things that, for example, we see in some celebrity or some person who we find to assign authority to? I would engage in multiple conversations, but I have to involve... oh my God. Horrid looking. So we're dealing with all of those traits on the spectrum. The easiest for people would be, of course, to go right here and start naming super crazy behaviors that they don't like so much. Then it would be very easy to go into desired plane and find what appeals us so much in other people, in some people with authority, or what we see, what upsets us, for example, in our partner can be here, in disgusting or bad, something that's hurtful. We can also harvest from that. Something from our childhood encounters, for example, parental behaviors we can find here in bad, disgusting, will be very easy to tap into that. Desired, yeah, some, for example, some will be very liberated, very free person. When we look, something triggers us. Also prohibited. Let's see. Let's put... So we can have parents. Parents are super easy for us to judge usually. Parents. Partner. Then celebrities. Characters. Celebrities and media persona. And we find all of our trigger points. For example, I'm looking at somebody dancing so sensually, so openly, so actively in some like party at night. It looks so charged sexually. I put it in one of these categories. It charges me up so much. I feel envy. I feel so much desire to that person, for example. Or at the same time, I feel like, no, I probably can't do this, but I want it so much. We identify that and we describe it. How we work with this method, we make a table. On Google Docs or Google Sheets, I mean. You make a table and you put some example, and in the next column, you're going to write the attributes that this person has. Whether it's a parent, partner, celebrity, character, even your imaginary character. Imaginary. We need to make a table. That's at least how I do it with my clients. So, here, we will have that persona. And here we'll put the qualities. And then we generate this. We generate this table here. For now, we don't need the third column. We'll have it later. So we identify the persona. We can encode it as anything. Some, again, parent, creature, whatever. Some code, some keyword. You put some keyword that you understand to represent that persona. And then you list all the qualities that this person has. You describe their image. You describe everything that describe. It can be a scenario, it can be description, it can be an outfit, it can be their behavior, it can be any attributes, any qualities that come to your mind. So this is how we start working with that. Any person that triggered you, you give their portrait and you write it in this table. It can be your classmate. It can be the classmate that, I don't know, got all the boys back in the day. How did they behave? What did they wear? What attitudes did they display? How they present yourself? How they present themselves? You analyze every of them. And you need to be, when you start working on this table, it will be very fun because you are going to see that your creativity will start blooming. You will start remembering more and more images, more and more people. And there are some things that I do with the clients in the sessions that actually help to shape this table. There are certain questions that come from an individual story, of course. There are certain specifics that we're going to work on. But anyone can work on this and try to shape their own domain of the personas, of the stimuli that trigger them, and what things they have there. Usually the system failed to punish them for wrongdoing. Whom? Stimulating conversation gives you total relaxation. Спасибо большое, madam, for the tables and writing. Visual learning has helped a lot with those notes. Thank you, Kiva. I'm very happy. Brian Waldron, cutie, you're wise beyond your years. I'm 31, I think. I mean, also it's not interchangeable. Persona qualities remind me of step 8 that talks about uncovering personas that were hidden due to shame. Yes. That's something that's along those lines. But we are, because we're working with external people, we're not actually necessarily analyzing ourselves. It's very easy. On par with that video about how to use people, it's really easy to see things in others. It's really easy to analyze others. And this is the principle that we're utilizing here. We're going through our partners, parents, celebrities, what characters, our imaginary figures, and we list all of them. Through that, we start understanding the patterns. Working with tables, actually. Working with tables is a really fascinating thing, because then you can sit, and when you're outside of this practice, you can analyze what's happening there. What are the trends? What am I observing there? The trick there, of course, is to be as unbiased as possible, be in your observer state. Or, again, work with a Tantra Coach, or with whoever you're working with, for understanding the patterns. But it will be a very interesting thing for you to see the biases that you have. So from this table, what are you going to derive? You're going to derive trends, biases, key focus area. Where's the conflict? The key focus, where is that conflict? So we're going to derive that. What bothers you the most? Where do you have the most issue? With what trait, with what personality part do you have the most issue? Break it, you will be able to break it down. This table allows you very visual, apparent depiction of what it is. Then, biases. What are you judging the most? What are you appeal to the most? These categories. You can then take all of your descriptions and turn them into this table, into this hierarchy. Disgusting, bad, desired. Trends. Just observe what's going on there. It could be anything. It's really fun research task. And this table will be a cool visual tool from which you can extract so much, just like an engineer, like a researcher. When you receive a data set, you can dissect it. You can extract so many things, so many plots, so many observations, build a formula to it. This is what we're doing here. We're performing this research in our Tantra work that allows us to eventually formulate the toolbox. When you've identified key focus points, when you've identified the biases, the trends, what bothers you really, what things enter your active perception. Because again, you look in the crowd, you see so many people around you, but only a couple of people will catch your attention. You are around different, you're even selecting the movie. Only a movie with certain scenario will catch your attention. Only certain people's stories will be interesting to you. So this is the same principle. What your mind yields. And we need to work. What's fun during the Tantra session, what happens during Tantra session, we're actually starting also to pump this charge. We're looking for this, we're ramping up this energy in this process. It becomes a very bubbling process. And my goal as a Tantra coach is to exhaust the client's spectrum. My goal is to find every nook and cranny, to extract every little thing in that session. And then sit down and break it into components. The most difficult work, the most interesting, the most in-depth work begins next. When we've identified this table, when we've collected this table, however, whatever format we end at, when we collected all of our data, when we learned about ourselves, when we build a portrait of our unconscious, or largely unconscious, because a lot of these things, they leak right into our life. We actually are pretty sensitive to these things oftentimes. But when, like in the previous chapter of our talk today, we've proven to ourselves, we've written it down, we've observed it in front of us, we've observed the trend, the existence of a trend, we've observed what we represent, what exists in our mental field, and how we relate to that. Now we know that, but then what to do, how to flip this hierarchy into this thing? Should I, for example, like from my client's story, a sex worker, dirty sex worker in some very bad district, red light district, so in some European city, sitting on the ground with her legs spread apart, in a dirty dress, dirty hair, and smoking. Pretty like middle-aged woman also. And the client got very disgusted. My client got very disgusted by that visual, very scared, viscerally affected by that. Not Thailand, no, it was in Europe. So that image was, however, quite interesting to me. We started looking into the purpose of this person, into what strength this person possesses. Because everything that's in the sexual domain, especially when we go somewhere here, there's so much. Sexuality, human sexuality in general, has been such a polarizing thing for centuries. We have collective trauma associated with sexuality. And when there are some extraordinary examples of very traumatized, very dark facets of human sexuality, when we encounter them, there's so much to uncover, there's so much to talk about. So with that image that was so brightly described, alongside with some very bright, very liberated, beautiful, confident facets, images, personas possessing some other side of sexuality, suddenly there is this, in this humid basement of life, there is this sex worker, completely broken down by life, seemingly, sitting and smoking on the ground. Almost complete dissociation. What we can feel in that? I want you to connect with that archetype. What can we feel in that? There's some like failure. It is filth. Feeling very peculiar, perhaps. Feeling very sad. It's really, really unfair. There's also this, it's unfair that the person is in this circumstance. She was a victim of something. Something happened so deep in the nature of humans, created that. It's so hurtful, yet so disgusting. Our psyche cannot put it all together that easily. There's no sense of ease. It's a strong image. Yet this person is alive. This person lives. This person does their job. This person has clients. What does it tell us about the sexuality? What can we find in that? What potential? There's a lot of charge in that. What potential is there? That's part of life, the existence. This lady exists. She succeeded in life. In life is in success, and life is being alive, living, actively living. This person is alive. And I started asking my client, what do you think her role is? Why men choose her? Why? Why do people go and pursue that? And what do you think this typical scenario that they play? What power did you find? What did you feel in her? Was she a submissive victim, in your opinion? Or is she a dominant woman? What happens behind the curtain? What happens in that room? And so the fantasy moves on. There's a huge potential in which this woman that is socially broken, that we reject, we tend to reject, that we feel like, oh my God, I wish it didn't exist, but she exists. And some sexual act exists every day, multiple times in her life. And my client felt like this woman must be dominant. She said that she definitely tortures these men. She definitely does something to them that is so like, that contains so much of this female rage. It's a very powerful female sexuality. Dominating, destructive, possessive, aggressive, violent. So all of that came together with that image of a person who is seemingly broken down, who is regarded by society as someone really and then there are men who are paying. There are men who are from the opposite plane of society. This clash, this hypocrisy, where somewhere on very animalistic level, on some very deep layers of human nature, these two sides of social life, they collide and they produce so much energy. And this woman becomes this power. So what potential can we extract from that? This disgust brings us to complete liberation of female sexuality. On the one hand, she is free. She is free from social expectations. Society gave up on her. But behind the curtains, she exhibits the ultimate power. And it doesn't matter how this woman really lives. When we talk about the client, when we talk about the client's stories, how they interpret things, this is what matters. This is what exists in their psyche. This is the story that they live by. So in that mind, there was the conflict of that everything gave up, everything failed. But from that failure, there is born ultimate freedom. So what it shows is the conflict between I'm either a part of something, good part of something, or I have my ultimate will. I have my right to express my will, my freedom, my sexuality. That shows this deepest conflict between female sexuality and society that is highlighted by that worker, on the street, in the mud, in the dust, without cigarettes and dirty hair. It shows the placement of that female freedom. Total embrace of the female freedom. To not be this ever submissive, transactionally trading her sexuality for resources, for safety, for social endorsement. But it is that primal, fully liberated and embodied thing that ruptures from beneath all of those layers of social programming. That is the beauty of working with those images. We start telling their stories. We go into these disgusting, bad things. And we develop the stories that we associate with them. And we understand how to release everything that is suppressed by some external narrative through those images, how we can release it openly without needing those stories that assign concepts to these phenomena. This lady, yes, she has all of these disgusting, very off-putting attributes to her. Her life is definitely not desirable. But she possesses the power that I'm in conflict with because of everything that she has in her life. But by being aware of the existence of this power, and that is allowed to live, I connect with this power. I can connect with it on my own terms. I can recognize that it's not necessarily going to be the exact life of that person, the same exact way this person was using it. It's going to be my own story on my own terms. What makes it disgusting is not the treasure that's locked in that archetype, but some other things that I can remove, I can dust them. I'm taking that power, unbiased, and I'm functionalizing it for myself. Be it aggression, be it sexual freedom, be it assertiveness, even some androgynous traits perhaps, because androgyny is something that also is kind of looked down upon by people usually, especially by men. Be it some loud behavior, showing myself, presenting myself, or being very critical, being impatient. I'm through all of these people, through all those traits. My creative task now is to find the treasure in each of them. I may have had aggressive father. It doesn't mean that aggression means that you apply it to beat children, for example, or torture animals. You can apply aggression in other ways, by creating the scenarios in which these traits are functionalized, useful. So this is how we do it. And this work can turn into a very creative process. But what we do, we start collecting it into our box of tools, box of traits. We remove the conflict with those traits. How it helps us, we remove potential. It's no longer disgusting, it's something I can try. It's no longer something desired, like, desired and panic when I'm having feeling of void without it. It's no longer desired. It's something that I can start using right now. Something neutral even. We can harvest and start accessing. Bad, disgusting. It's just a tool. And I own it. I know exactly how to use it. So that's how we work on this chapter. But there are more tantric tools related to this specific topic that we do in the one-on-one sessions. And of course, from case to case, there's going to be plethora of discoveries, plethora of stories, and individual path. So some people toy with the idea of saving a woman like that, but in reality she'd resent that concept and betray you. Saving in general is a really rotten concept. Saving, when saving is the language of love, this means that you want to save, you want to be saved, and reality is just bouncing the victim role around. It's literally playing with like a soccer ball. Victim role is just like goes from person to person, and that ends up being that system that we try to withdraw ourselves from. Dysfunctional system that never leads to actual saving, actual creative pursuits. So the whole life will be submitted by saving without any forward movement. And without forward movement, what we feel just exhaustion. And we also need external supports. We start being parasites on some external things, trying to find resource there. We start trying to introduce other people into our triangulations or polygons, energy harvesting polygons, creating drama with involvement of multiple people, then feeling awkward, feeling a lot of tension, pressure. It's just a huge energy dump. Most people cannot be saved anyways. Exactly, yeah. Saving, when again you see someone just tripped, you give them hand to help them get up. You saved them. Problem solved. When you see a person who does everything to trip every day at that spot, you cannot save them because they have a function, they have some code, some blueprint, some script in their mind that makes them put the traps for them to trip every single day. You can remove traps, you can try removing traps, you can try helping them getting up, you can invite others, you can be like, hey people, there's a person tripping here every day. Can you watch them not trip for me, please? You feel irresponsible, you become their parent, they become your pet. Ton of energy is invested, person is still tripping. Moreover, if you feel sucked into the system, this means that you expect something, you're entitled, you feel power over that person. Why do you exercise power with one person in the issue that you cannot solve? What is that pursuit of participation award? When you can take the same amount of energy and bring it to the system for which you can take full responsibility, as opposed to taking this partial responsibility and feel good. Put your full responsibility to something that you actually can creatively change and propel forward. Develop it. I have very good short videos on savior complex that talks about that. In fact, it's pursuing participation award, inability to take responsibility and claim responsibility for your path, for the systems that you can control, influence, and develop. Instead, you prey on someone in trouble, you connect with them, you feel like you're saving them, you feel like you're doing some grandiose job. They give you the sense of reward on a permanent basis, on constant basis. They pump you with this gratification, small acts of gratification, and you settle for that. You get gratification from those little acts of quote-unquote saving without being able to put your energy elsewhere in life, never achieving anything that you want, and never, in fact, treating and healing the system that you sucked yourself into. So that's the paradox. Let's erase this. And today we're having very scarce attendance. Unfortunately, because the video is very good, the topic is very good. Bottom line, I did, okay, sir, attempt to intellectualize sex. I'm subscribed because I'm listening to you. Oh my god. Howard Lucan, I appreciate that you subscribed. I'm not intellectualizing anything. This should be in today's highlights. Actually, highlights are AI generated. So I don't know what YouTube will pick. It's their engine. I don't know how they select the topics. I wish I got here sooner, so I could hear the beginning, what you were just talking about. Chad, you're welcome to watch the replay. I don't know what happened today, but very few people joined. The beginning was like always, it was like more of a lecture, not like conversation with chat, so it won't be boring probably to watch. There are no interruptions or anything like that. It's just straight to the point. So, but yeah. I think I threw a monkey wrench into your logic. Fantastic. Fantastic, Howard Lucan. Malik, thank you so much. But thanks for not banning me because I oppose your opinions and intellectualism. So be the author and the character of your own book. I mean, that's what you inevitably will be doing, whether you are going to be doing it without your own will or with your will. I mean, nobody will live your life for you. But whether you will do it, your your will is always limited by your ignorance. And you're also, on the flip side, a willingness to take responsibility. So it will just determine the quality of your life experiences. But like write your own book, I don't know. If you want to frame it this way, then yes. Make most every day, one day sun will rise without you. Z Corp Alpha. Thank you so much for your contribution, very pleasant. Howard Lucan, you are actually shooting very low. You're thanking people for not banning you. Imagine life, level of life. It's like, thank you for not yelling at me. You know, I think you would really greatly benefit from improving your self-esteem. Hello, Nastya. Hello, Roy. Does the Book of Life have a sequel? I don't know, it's too poetic for me. Let's talk about something more practical. Reviewing at the moment of this pause. Thank you for sharing with us today. Thank you so much, Leslie. Let's go with your questions, probably, if you have any. Sweetheart, it's like water off, ducks back, nothing offends me. Tell me that I'm Neanderthal. Sweetheart. Sure. I'm not trying to offend you. I'm just saying that you clearly express that you're happy for not being banned. I'm saying that raise your bar. How do you feel about dominatrixes and people who seek them out? Well, there is actually it's an interesting question, general about BDSM. Sex and pain. Play of dominance, submission, surrender of will. That's what we talk about when we think about BDSM. What phenomena are at play there? There is a thing that is called control. And control is not just there to be exercised. We can take control. What can we do with control? Take it, manage it, surrender. So we have these three things that we can do with control. But while take control, surrender control are kind of easy for us, actually managing it by means switching and regulating how much control we take, whether we control certain things, is actually difficult. I want you to understand this point here. For example, you have tension in some muscle. You have a tense muscle. The fact that you cannot relax it means that you are not in control of that muscle, even though tension is commonly associated with controlling something. When you are very strongly controlling, when you're trying to control something very strongly, you are, in fact, perhaps not managing control really well, because you might be stuck in either taking control or surrendering control. But you may absolutely suck at management of control. Where you surrender it, where you take it, switching between the two. So people who are going to benefit greatly, sensationally, emotionally, from BDSM practices oftentimes are people who are stuck in one of the actions that they can exercise in terms of control. When you're not managing, you're stuck. In one form of control. Either you're taking it, you're getting too much of that, or you're unable to take control. In intimacy, these scenarios, because intimacy is it's a play, it's some domain in which we can exercise things that we cannot exercise in the daily life. In intimacy, it may be a very attractive opportunity to play a different scenario. And when there are problems with, for example, controlling, managing your control, how you relax, or how you become more energetic, BDSM comes in handy for either turning off your brain and allowing you to relax, surrender control, and actually feel something, because you have so much defense. Imagine your body is fully armored. Let's draw this little human here. Imagine their body is fully armored. So their brain cannot break free. Their sensations cannot break free through this armor here. But when something crushes this barrier, this is when they can access their sensations. That's how, for example, such practices as some suffocation work, Distracting the brain, this exists in the mental plane. You can distract the brain from control to feeling pain. And that liberates the access to pleasure, that access, that relaxation state. And so BDSM practices, they can do this. They can become an ultimate restful practice where you, for example, you don't know how to manage control and focus. You don't know how to manage it. You cannot relax. You cannot on demand relax. This function doesn't work. You're fully shielded. You're fully calloused because of your lifestyle. So in BDSM practices, where there's dominance, where there's pain, you can break free that and access, have a glimpse of contact with your body. Because the sensations are strong enough to break through that shield, that numbness. So this is what we're dealing with oftentimes. So when people who are going to seek dominance, they are likely living in such a level of pressure, such a level of tension, that for them, creating, how we always talk about, right, controllable environment in which they can surrender their control and experience very strong, stimulating sensations, may be the only way they can actually feel something. They can feel rest and release, emotional release. Oftentimes it is an emotional release that I cannot get anywhere else. So that's what I think about it. What are the alternatives to that? There are works in Tantra, actually, remember in Tantra we work with expanding our senses, expanding our sensory palette. We're working on connecting with our body in a relaxed state. That's what we do in Tantra. Tantric practices of working with focus and defocus, when we learn to control our focus, when we learn to actually manage our control, they can be a very good substitution for BDSM. Because your senses, your receptors, they clear up. You become more sensitive, more susceptible to lighter stimulation. You start experiencing broader spectrum of pleasures. Your nervous endings, they reawaken, reactivate. And through that, you don't feel even like desire to go to such level of intensity. Another thing that happens is BDSM, another facet of it, is not just tension, it's not just control. We're also often talking about trauma. Trauma of physical abuse, trauma of psychological abuse, aggression that was not released. And then specifically physical abuse can lead to inclination to seek those experiences. Even sports, professional sports, ballet, something like that. These things can produce this masochistic, or on the flip side, sadistic personality traits. These can play a role there. People who exercise a lot of dominance in the world might want to feel submitted because they're tired of control. People for whom emotional release got imprinted in childhood through pain. For example, there was very difficult, very charged conflict with the parent. The parent and child are in this very crazy dynamics. And then it all ends with the act of physical pain from the parent. And that brings the release. The child can finally cry. The child can finally release and feel justified justify these emotions. So this link of very strong emotional aggravation, then pain and release, may be the imprint that this person has. So they will be pursuing this as a means of management in the intimate relationship as well, perhaps, if they are not releasing it through some other means, if they haven't worked on that trauma and haven't built other ways of managing themselves, other ways of working with their emotions, other ways of working with their senses. I like being slapped across the face and things like that, but I'm not entirely sure why. If I'm kind of big guy, so maybe I like the role switch. Now there is element of aggression in sex. You are infringing on somebody's boundaries. You're crushing boundaries in that moment. So that can amplify the excitement. That can amplify the intensity. That's when you receive permission to experience and do all these things. So it takes place. Yeah, I mean, it's no need to question these behaviors. But yeah, they can be a very cool vehicle to play emotions, multitude of scenarios in a safe, controllable environment. I was even thinking about some deeper cases when there is like slap on the face is not traumatic. Some people seek really traumatic experiences, and through those experiences they achieve this feeling of aliveness. We can even compare it with some experiences, in some tattoo salons. They have hooks, meat hooks. So people make holes in their skin and they hang themselves on those meat hooks. And they hang and they have those orgasmic experiences, orgasmic release. So that can be to amplify senses, that can be to like increase the degree of heat when it's some light forms of BDSM, or to signify that we're breaking the boundary, that we're legalizing aggression there, letting our energy flow. Or it can be traumatic responses. It can be the only means that we know to release energy, to actually connect with our body. So there can be a whole bunch of stuff happening there. BDSM is weird to me. Yeah, I mean, it can be quite disturbing, especially in more extreme cases. How good is your knowledge of what a person goes through during an episode of psychosis? And perhaps I won't give you the direct explanation of the mechanics of that. It depends on what the psychosis was induced by. Why are you asking, Sander? Step 3 of 13 steps of Tantra talks about focus and defocus. Right, Kiva, thank you. Focus and defocus are those practices that are replacing the BDSM in some sense, because they train you to manipulate your focus in and out of the zone that's being stimulated. Because imagine, during BDSM, oftentimes there is sensory information comes from the genitals that are experiencing aggravation to the point of discharge, but discharge, for example, doesn't happen without some stimulation elsewhere in the body that is of equivalent force, that kind of allows the person to remove control from that area and actually allow the release. So that's the mechanics of that. This thing takes control, takes attention to control that. So, for example, where there's source of pain happening, or some stimulation that's very strong, impressive. And that allows to ditch control. The controller runs there, poo, 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 and then the body allows to discharge, allows those strong sensations in the genitals, for example. So when we start working on focus, defocus, coupled with relaxation to remove the need for that controller, primarily, we start accessing various scenarios in which BDSM practices for that particular reason become redundant. And they actually become less interesting because you build a background in which the level of stress is much lower. Your comfort zone is much softer, much more loving, much more caring than the background of when you're constantly agitated, constantly stressed, constantly pushing yourself, constantly squeezing yourself to achieve and hyperachieve. You lower that to more peaceful, blissful state. And in that state, it actually becomes not so even interesting to engage in those practices. Because you also awaken, your body awakens to so many senses. And at the same time, the controller slowly fades away. That sexuality starts becoming much more harmonious, and it's easy to put sexuality in the domain of more blissful, more positive, more kind and loving sphere, as opposed to sexuality associated with cruelty, aggression, destruction, because that's when traumatized sexuality starts engaging in intimacy. That's usually where sexuality ends up placing itself, in the domain of cruelty, abuse, trauma, aggression, anger, these feelings. In tantric work, through tantric practices, we enter the paradigm in which sexuality exists in a more cheerful, pleasant, fun, playful way. I asked because I believe that psychosis is purely fed by the subconscious with no filter. So one can argue that it is actually a good experience to get to know oneself. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah, I mean, psychosis, again, I want to rule out the substance-induced psychosis, okay? So it's such that we're clear. Psychosis that, for example, if you allow yourself to experience pure aggression, pure reactivity without any social boundaries, that's a very cool experience to have if we agreed on the terminology here. That's actually a super cool thing. And remember, we were talking about, I don't know if you were with me at that point, we had a live stream in which we were talking about trauma recovery. One of the practices there was movement therapy, in which we were talking about the spontaneous barbaric dance. Which dance being an arbitrary word, there's no choreography to it. There's no analysis to that. It is just a very body-oriented, something that comes from inside, pure emotion, pure surrender of control to the body, something that can be rolling on the floor screaming, something that can be crawling and roaring, something that can be dancing, spinning, shaking your head, shaking your body, squeezing, stomping, doing all sorts of things. That dance is where we access that state of pure connection between mind and body. That's how we reconnect mind and body in the most pristine form. Can it be analogous to what you described? Perhaps. If you connect with that, the possibility of expressing yourself vocally, screaming things that bother you in the depth of your heart, you can perhaps, yes, emulate the experience that you described with that psychosis, where your fantasy, imaginary things that actually bother you are amplified to no end, and they're expressed fully through your body, through your voice. And that is the moment of fusion between your all parts of you: physical, mental, emotional, rational. That's where they all fuse together and express themselves, exercise themselves. Can that be the example of that? And we can actually induce that? Absolutely. Very cool tool, in fact. Love is the best stimulant. No, there are plenty of people who love their relatives, but they're not stimulated by love. Love is a very abstract term. Sometimes the best stimulant is something very forbidden, something that lives, remember our table, something that lives in the scope of disgusting, something that we hide in the scope of bad, in the box of bad. And it's not love at all. We even sometimes are ashamed of our desires, and they're very stimulating. So love being the best stimulant, I will highly argue that. Love oftentimes becomes an impediment if people live in hierarchy of traits and qualities, if they don't integrate them, if they have this polarization, as opposed to having them just as a toolbox. That's when love can actually become a huge stop on the way of their sensual experiences, because they'll have some concepts around it. Maybe okay, I wouldn't want a woman who doesn't love me to slap me. It's more of a playful thing. I would ask her to do so. You're talking about creating a controllable environment in which you can safely experience that. And that's, of course, a super important thing. You know that you're in control, you know that you're in safety, and that's where the play comes. But unfortunately, the dark side of BDSM that happens is that, for example, people after a sexual trauma, they pursue BDSM as the way to re-exercise the trauma. And it's not BDSM as a sexual practice, it is BDSM as not controlled replay of trauma. It's not a safe replay of trauma, it's re-traumatizing experience. That's where it is very negative practice. That's where it's very damaging practice, because the person just hits the same painful spot over and over and over and over. On the one hand, numbing themselves to that. On the other hand, numbing themselves to everything else that intimacy could offer. Definitely not a healthy way of approaching intimacy in that case. The connection with the body faints, psychological wellness drops, a lot of tension accumulates, the association between sexuality and feeling unsafe increases. Oftentimes sex workers experience that. People who pursue career in various adult entertainment industries experience that. The body becomes something that they disconnect from. They see it as an artistic tool, as the transactional tool, as a currency. So that is the consequence of approaching BDSM not from the perspective that I'm loved and safe and I want to experience something in this controllable, safe environment, but instead opting for it as just hardcore things that just challenge you all the time, that bring you to the limit of your perception, that force you into developing numbness. So that's a very good comment here. Yes, I agree. Thank you, Electric Aura. Cool handle. Any other questions, comments on the issue? But yeah, with control, it's important, because if you're like, I'm a very controlling person, oftentimes means that I am not a good manager of my control. Oftentimes, I'm a very controlling person means that not that you're aced it, but that you are stuck in one scenario and cannot exercise flexibility. And also sometimes people who are very controlling, they're controlling only a limited number of things, They're so focused on that they cannot manage other areas of their life. That's why it's important to focus here on management. Can you talk about bipolar? What do you want me to talk about bipolar? Give me an exact issue or exact question that you want to discuss with that. What are the symptoms? What are the experiences we're talking about? Because just bipolar and what? There are probably plenty of clinical psychology lectures that can talk about it in depth, generally. But we're solving practical problems here. I'll take a. She keeps talking down to me. What do you mean I keep talking down to you? Or who keeps talking down to me? Also, borderline personality, which is often misdiagnosed as bipolar. Now tell me the particular cases, case studies, and we will talk about them. If there are personality disorders, I mean, not my profile to just discuss personality disorders or offer. I'm not a psychologist. I am Tantra Coach and Tantra therapist. But these things, the personality disorders, they are outside of my expertise to just talk about them generally. I can offer you solutions for how to work on specific case, how they trouble you. Because if a person, for example, has either of these disorders, or a person coexists with a person with disorder, how can they manage? How can they make best out of their life or coexistence? That's something that where I can help. But I cannot help with like some medical therapy or anything like that. It's some pharmaceutical support for that. I tried to keep her as a friend, but it's hard. Okay, so bipolar keeps talking down to me. I tried to keep her as a friend, but it's hard. So you have an issue with a friend. Let me see, maybe you specified something above. No. I was trying to add to the topic. I wasn't sure if you'd go with it or not. So, is it electric war? Are we talking about your friend, your situation with a friend? With a bipolar disorder? Or do you have a bipolar disorder? And we will be drawing this on the board. Who is who and who does what? And where the issue is between you. And what the goals of your communication are in general. Yes, it was a friend. She's bipolar. Okay, we have a friend. Has a bipolar disorder. I forgot that we're backwards. Poo, poo, poo. We have you. Do you have anything going on? It's like she reads me in the midst of her bipolar episode. Do you have anything that we need to know about you? Or are we just electric aura? Let's label you just as electric aura. It's a mom tired and exhausted. I'm a mom tired and exhausted and an artist. Okay. So we have mom, exhausted, Artist. So we have this dynamics going on. The fact that bipolar episode, the fact that you know that this person has a bipolar personality disorder, why is it relevant right now? And also, you think that she talks down, feeling like keeps talking down, feeling like being talked down. Does it happen always, or is it only when she has an flare up? Or I guess I don't know, some manic manic phase. What happens? So these events, when do they happen? When she flares up. Okay, so we're drawing this like when everything is peaceful, how does it feel to you? She keeps calling me, she doesn't sleep. Keeps talking down, what does it mean to you? That she's how do you understand that she's talking down to you? We're drawing the phone here. Cannot sleep. She keeps calling me. Dog is resting. It's also, by the way, been only 2 hours. He usually comes at 2:30 Sunday. Like psychological gain makes me upset. So when she calls you and she makes you feel like she's talking down to you, what does it mean? Like psychological gain, I can game explain it. What is this to you? Co-host is always working hard, yes. He's charging. So I will write that you feel confused here. Because you can't understand what's happening. Confused. It's like she's triggering me. I'm really empathetic. Triggering you to do what? Is she like crying to you that she cannot sleep and you feel like you need to jump up and start saving her or what? What's up, my German boo? Let me close the curtains. She doesn't need saving, but it's like she starts talking down, making things up. Making things up meaning actually narcissism. It has phase of narcissistic delirium sometimes. That also might be actually something close to the truth. But okay, so making things up. How do we depict it? Let's just write it. making things up. She told me I told someone she knows her house is dirty. I don't know anyone she knows. Okay, so it's very actually a familiar story to me, to be honest. So you feel down afterwards. That's the bottom line. What happens when she's in peace? What do you experience when she's outside of her episode? Just out of curiosity. Feeling drained, right? Probably applies there too. Brain drained. When she's in peace, I feel nothing. I think I think the drugs numb her. What's the point of friendship there? Do you have any moments when you're like, wow, friend? No. What's the when you tried unfriending her? What happened to you? What did you feel? So what's wrong with me then? What happened when you tried unfriending her? Or in your head when you met? She called me so many times. She sent pictures of us. Okay, and you decided, okay, let's be friends, or what? Or let me remain your support system, or what? No. Did you feel bad, like ditching her? I blocked her, but I feel bad. Okay, so you are right now in the phase in which you are experiencing the withdrawal from that with some guilt. Yes. Okay. So right now we cut ties and we're feeling guilt. Boom. Okay. So what are your expectations? Like what we started, I don't know if when you joined, actually your question is very related to what we started with, but being the donor to the ill system. So, I am a Tantra Coach, Tantra Therapist, trip 2112, yesterday. What are your expectations from this system? Because you two are forming a system. You are donating a lot of your resource to the system. You receive something from the system that you don't necessarily need, but you're attached to it because you cannot access your resource, obviously. So what are your expectations from this system? Why would you want to keep this going? Let's demystify that a little bit. Maybe you feel like your social circle is very narrow and she might be useful sometime down the road when you need to fall back on someone. Maybe you think that, I don't know, that's something that comes to my mind. Probably the only thing that just comes to my mind on the surface when we think about these systems. Like functionally, what's the role of the system? Иди ко мне. Иди на ручки. Пришел песик, иди сюда, мой песик. А вот и песик. Somebody asked about the dog. Here he is. He just was waiting for his time. Да, мой пес. Ты пришел. Любимый малыш. Маленький мой, дорогой, проснулся. Ты проснулся. They must get something out of it. She didn't tell me she was bipolar. Her son told me, so I got nothing. I get nothing. The fact that she's bipolar doesn't matter. It's your cartoon right now. The fact that she's bipolar, yes, I mean, it's important to understand what to expect. Having a diagnosis is like validation of what you're feeling. Because you observe the system, you're like, okay, this shit happens all the time. So, and somebody tells you that in fact the person has diagnosis. So you're like, okay, makes sense. So this is valid. I'm not alone in that. There is some confirmation that I'm not in delirium. But the point is, what do you get from this connection? What are your expectations from the system to keep the system going? My dog's name is Kuzis under Circus. Thank you so much, Trip. Yes, he is a phenomenal dog. I get nothing. ... Wait, you get nothing. But, again, the fact that when you erase this person from your life, what's the void left? Chad, please keep them somewhere. If you are from your laptop, write them in the notepad if you don't mind. I'm curious. Какой мне на русский еще? Ты на русский? Псина моя, псина дорогая моя. Пупсик мой. You erase this person from your life. What's left? I feel bad because I think it's wrong when I let go of someone that's sick. But you feel bad keeping them at the same time. Wrong also. I mean, I don't want to sound cheesy perhaps, but you have this much of vital resource. Like, you have this much of vital resource. This communication clearly drains you. You have obligations. You have things that depend on you. You have things that literally depend on you. That you can change. That require your resource. Things that you want to do. Things that you can change. Things that you can control. Why is there an interest to find someone who you don't control? The best case scenario, you will get participation award and depreciation of your efforts if you keep donating their energy to. You donate a bunch of your energy, instead of spending it here, you're donating it all here. All of that has gone there. These things are starved of your energy. This thing receives large portion of it. Why do you want to take partial responsibility for managing this person instead of taking full responsibility for managing what you can control? That's every scenario of saving is when there is an illusion that this is an independent person, so they're in charge. But I will contribute and will feel good without taking full responsibility. Because the alternative, I have this level of vitality, it needs to go somewhere. I can take care of my art better, you can like spin it, maybe there's some ambitious idea that you have. Some ambitious idea that you would want to propagate. That requires your vitality, that you will fully control, be fully responsible for. Why is there an impulse to not embrace that, but embrace that instead? Because this is just participation award. You're going to get paper medal for this. Have a problem saving people, I need help. Okay, let's figure it out. You have a choice. Either you donate your energy to get participation award, paper medal, or you can locate your energy into more sustainable projects, sustainable work that will in fact be helping more people, but you need to exercise your full responsibility. But the reward will be bigger too. It will feel like your path. It will be on your path. This is your detour. See it as the following, okay? We don't need all of this, right? We don't need this picture anymore. This is your path. You're given energy to walk this path. While you're on this path, you're given infinite amount of energy. Not infinite, enough energy and reward. You can collect coins here, flowers, people's things, and resources. But then there is this thing. Ah, save me from the bushes somewhere. All of your attention goes there. So instead of walking your path, you're like, no, wait, I'm not gonna go here. I'm going to go here. I will get, of course, some thorns up in my legs and stuff because it's a thorny path. And in the end, this person will depreciate it all as well. So why? Why not go here, but go here? Why does this become all of a sudden more interesting or easy? Is there some barrier here that you're feeling? Or what is that? Because that's the path where you're with the flow. You're going with the flow. But this becomes somehow more interesting. Why? What's there on your path that makes you take the detour? Thanks so much, Electicor. Thank you so much for your contribution. Because you have 16 hours of awake time. The resources that we have have 16 hours. And outside of our normal metabolic rate, we have probably like 800 calories to spare. So these are your resources. 800 calories in 16 hours. And you have a choice where you spend them. Another question to think. Why, on this path, for example, why you perhaps don't see this treasure, why you don't value this treasure, but you value something that this person gives you, this screaming from the bushes. How can we see the treasures on this path more clearly? How can we appreciate them? There could be self-esteem thing, because if you, for example, tell yourself that what I love, what I do is kind of and only through somebody else's immediate feedback that thank you for saving me, or from like harmony that you establish in the moment, you find that, oh, I was helpful, I was useful. How about strategically thinking about it? Because on this path, you can help many more people. You can do much more, technically. But somehow this gratification, instant gratification from this, is more valuable than anything on this path. What's the difference here? On this path, you are playing your script. You need to claim your values. That's the important distinction here. When you're saving someone, they create a value system for you. This is where you need to formulate your own value system. Do you value what you're doing? Do you value what you believe in? Do you value what genetics you're presented with? Like nature gave you something. Nature gave you gifts to exercise. These things that you can control and exercise. Do you value them? Or do you think that someone needs to give you permission? Because this, somebody else validates you right in the moment. This is instant gratification of validation. One of the interpretation of that may be. Save me, I'll validate you. But this is where you first validate yourself here, before this barrier. You validate yourself here, and then you start walking this path, and the concept of validation disappears as a phenomenon. You're just receiving energy and giving it to others, giving it to the world, giving it to others. So here, you set yourself up to walk this path through giving your path validation yourself. And you're walking this path just receiving energy and giving to the world, receiving energy, giving to the world, because you know that it's valid. You validate it once, you don't need validation ever again. Here, you constantly depend on validation from this screaming from the bushes. And conveniently, there is the friend who's bipolar, so they have swings. They can offer you validation, crush, so they withdraw. They withdraw it from you, give it back, withdraw, give it back. When she's talking down, she withdraws validation. Then you receive validation. When she calls, you are needed. So you're tugging this validation instead of taking that validation, not even taking, just from within and walk on your path. Maybe you think you'll receive a great reward for saving the person in the bushes, or immediate reward. Or again, reward without taking responsibility for it. Because responsibility in any case, this is their life, their responsibility. You will never need to take full responsibility for this person. They are their own thing. You're only going to participate for validation. There's the only thing that's given there. This person is taking your treasures and draining you. Yeah, but then they stimulate this attraction. Being a male is a matter of birth, being a man is a matter of age, and being gentleman is a matter of choice. Sure. Bipolar, no, I hate the roller coaster people. I'm gonna look into my value system. And the value system is to connect with the path where your energy flows freely. See the projects that excite you the most right now, where you're not going to feel exhaustion. The fact that you're exhausted, of course, it's tempting to interact with someone who can spike some energy in you, as opposed to going on the more sustainable path in which you don't need the spikes, in which you're just constantly with the flow. Because if you short circuit yourself on this person, you will be getting like bare minimum energy, like those flickers of energy here and there, through them playing this tug of war with you. Pulling you, crushing you, pulling you, crushing you, pulling you, crushing you. Being an artist as well. Being an artist, so you're already in your creative thing. What can you do more? Can you do something else? Is there anything that you are not doing that you need to be doing in your feelings? What energies are there that are like bubbling up somewhere on the back of your mind? And that will be not the matter of guilt. You're still short-circuited on that person. Where is it? Short-circuited on this person. When you feel guilt, you're still living through their value system. You're still living through their appraisal when you feel guilt. Which means that there is dissolution of yourself, which means that there is no alignment with the path. Which means that you are not, valuing that path. That you could be walking instead, sustainable path. That's hypothesis. If it aligns with you, I'm happy. Then you can work on that further. If you want to actually challenge anything that I'm saying, feel free. It's not a dogma, it's hypothesis. Sister, sometimes trying to save a person with bipolar personality disorder is like covering up a leak in the water pipe with your hand. Yeah. But your goal was to water the garden. That's a good analogy. Your goal is to water the garden, but you are spending your efforts trying to cover that leak. Somewhere. You're chasing that leak all the time. So the garden is not being watered properly. You're wasting a lot of time. These people offer reward but want a greater reward in return. And it's also instant gratification. It's like eating candy. Not only it's not nutritious, it also drains other nutrients that you received elsewhere. You have to eventually walk away and sleep, but now that you took your hand away, it's your fault that there's water elsewhere. Appreciate you. Thanks, everything you said spoke to me. I'm very happy, Electric Aura. What's your plan of action? Let's not leave on this note. What's your plan of action, Electric Aura? After the stream is over. Also, by the way, TJG Ray, thank you so much for your contribution. Trip, I will address your questions later. So, Electric War, let's think of the action plan, because now you have guilt. This is what we deal with. Right now, you feel guilt. So, what are we going to do with that? Guilt being what? Something in your head is signaling. So, guilt is this signaling going on. Your brain is already fired up. So what are we going to do with that? This is your brain fired up. Can we take this energy, neutralize it, guilt, whatever? Can we make a devotion, for example? You unplug automatically. Can we take this energy and do something, I don't know, something that you've been putting to the side? Some easy project. That's something that you've been procrastinating, maybe. Maybe some self-care act. Whatever. Whatever is needed to, whatever is you find to be productive, constructive, forward. What comes to your mind, Electric? What are the first thing that you could do? If you, by the way, have any preferred names, guys, if you don't like me calling you by your handles, you can also say your preferred names. So. One of the videos I need to finish editing. Can we make a devotion? And turn this guilt, being aware of this guilt, not masking it. Can we take this guilt and we can transform it into, I am devoting now to my path. You reframe it. Sit with that guilt, maximize it, and go open your app while you're focusing on your guilt, because it's your instant gratification feeling right now. Focus on that guilt. While you're focusing on this guilt, make your body open the video editor. And while your body is opening the video editor, you are cranking up this energy, and you get sucked into automatically. The hardest thing is to start. You automatically get sucked into this activity. So your energy will be devoted to that video. Can we do that? So we're placing this. Guilt will transform into that thing. Every time you think about this, focus your attention on something on this path, make it a trigger. Every time I get sad, I stop drawing and take a break. Sad because of the issue or sad because of something in general? Sadness is also kind of, can be low energy state. The situation, okay. So I offer you the principle of triggers. It can be not just drawing, it can be anything. I mean, you're a mom, you're an artist, you probably have your home, you have your own body. You have so many things where you can devote that emotion to. So many things you can identify. And use them as triggers. On my channel, I talked a lot about the principle of triggers. Some habit, some crappy habit that we have sometimes. Like I was envying my coworker once. Pointlessly envying my coworker. The objective of envy, the object of envy, was completely irrelevant to me. But in the moment, it was really triggering, because I was not so happy with my project sometimes, and I was really interested in the project that my coworker was working on. But at the same time, I could care less to work on that project in the grand scheme of things. So I turned it into a system of triggers that whenever I feel this envy rushing, I am focusing I ask myself, did I do everything to make my life the way I want it to be? Usually the answer is no. Next question, what can I do right now to make my life more closer to what I want it to be? YouTube, Instagram, art Instagram, my own project, my thesis. 10 squats, I don't know, mini sports, go for a walk. There's a whole plethora of things that exist on that plane. So I developed the system of triggers. When unfavorable behavior hits, the energy rushes, brain lights up. I take that energy and I move it to where I want it to be. Works fantastically. It turns you into a super machine in which every behavior like this that you could care less to have turns you, like we take shit, grow peaches. That's the principle. Fantastic principle. Really suggest, really recommend. Jeff Herbert, thank you so much. I'm very happy. Ben, hello. Jonathan, Ben. Do you think language locks memories? If I was born speaking Spanish but adopted to English society, I forgot my native tongue. Is it possible to lose those memories? I don't know. Depends on you, your personal specifics. A person can't permanently stop a water leak with their hand, but a person with a leak will get angry when you have leak. Will get angry when you have to take your hand away. Don't ever stop helping people. Thank you, Jeff. After a while, you see a plumber needs to do this. Yeah. Everybody have a blessed night. Ruben, thank you. You too. Thanks. This helps take your pain turned into your passion. Yes, or even something simple. If you are tired, I mean, if you're tired, of course, it will be nuts to take this stimulus and go do something incredibly strenuous. So see some little comfortable things within your more or less comfort zone, perhaps, depending on your state and the moment, that you could put this energy towards and turn it into devotion. Devotion. Every time I do this, I devote it to something. That's a beautiful concept. It's not that I am like prohibiting myself something. I'm straining myself. No, I'm devoting. That will actually make your attitude towards your guilt even much more relaxed. You'll be like, okay, I feel guilt. This is a normal reaction to withdrawal from this person. But now I understand that the system is dysfunctional. So I'm going to take this guilt and direct it towards my path, more sustainable path. Another thing, I was discussing it with one of my acquaintances last year. This principle can also be rewarded as following. When you have an impulse to save someone, save someone. Ask yourself, did I save myself today? Could I do better? Could I live better? Could I live more pleasurably? Am I tense? Am I even breathing fully? Am I breathing through my entire body right now? Do I feel my shoulders, or are they numb from all the tension that I'm carrying? What's in my pelvic floor? What's in my forehead? Is my forehead tense? Are my eyebrows like this? What is happening with me right now? Did I save myself? All the interests that I have in life, did I save those? Did I play today? Did I enjoy my life today? Little auditing too. Did I save myself with everything that I constitute, everything that's my responsibility scope? Is all of that taken care of before I run to quote unquote save or participate in somebody else's life? Trip, by the way, let's go back to your thing now that you're at messaging again. So do you not agree with online dating? Is dating apps the bush path? I don't know about the online dating. I mean, it works for some people, works wonders. I don't know if staying online is definitely not the option. I don't think, because our relationships with humans we built to actually connect physically, I think. But even like in friendships, want to be in one space, want to have shared space. Online is very low dimensional, I guess, for what human constitutes. So I don't know. I don't think that it's a bush path, but as a beginning, as a starting, as for discovering people, I think it's viable. My personal take on that, I've never been into online dating. I was fortunate. I was always in men-dominated fields, so I always had good assortment of candidates. Then you could get paid for doing this. You opened my mind and made so much sense. I need to find therapists like you. You can work with me on my website, Raw Form of Life. I have services. Human Renaissance is where I do Tantra coaching in accordance to 13 steps of Tantra, but coming from your issue. So it's Tantric approach. If you're curious, you can research that using 13 steps of Tantra video, what to expect. But it has a block of course, conversational work, analytical work. But it all has practical implications using tantric tools that have a lot of intercepts with modern psychotherapy, but Tantra is more all-encompassing, and it is based on, also it has a lot of the practices, they are meditative. And they are working with your body, with your nervous system, along with conversational things. So we set the precedent with certain issue that you bring to me in this consultation work. You set the precedent, but we're also taking care of all of the fundamentals based on the concept, on the idea that you bring to me. So watch 13 Steps of Tantra. If it's for you, consider rawformoflife.com, same as my channel name, my website. My ex had borderline personality disorder. My mom has bipolar. So I'm emphasizing with you, empathizing with you. You didn't mean to sound like I'm downplaying what you're going through. Okay. Good to know for this, actually, for your background, Chad. Point, have your own needs met, yes. What a beautiful lesson. I've been listening for the past hour. You have a gift and have inspired me to find mine a little more every day. Thank you so much, Invar. Invad. Invad. Invadradim Zimmerman. Thank you. You know, I feel badly guilty, but I can't be a punching bag anymore. But thanks for your words and thanks to everyone. Thank you, guys. Thanks so much. I look it up. Thanks. I subscribe, Doc. Thank you, Doc. So guilt turning shit into peaches or whatever fruits you prefer. Peaches are my favorite fruits. If you want to bribe me with peaches. Are we all set with this? I'm erasing. I can eat it. Okay. Duck. Nice. Any questions, comments, concerns, any topics? Comments about dress, by the way, I've been remodeling it in a hardcore way. So I need to fix the top a little bit, but... Shuriken Zone. Hello, Shuriken. Nice to see you. Sorry, sister, I love to watch the rerun. Sounds like there was some good stuff. Yes, it was. Question, yes, Kiva. Actually, well, did we do the recap already? No, we didn't. The recap would be fun to do probably today, because what did we cover? Oh my god, the beginning was so interesting. You know what actually happens with the streams right now? The daylight is much longer now. So it starts in the bright day, and then it turns into night through the stream. And I feel so weird because it feels like it was just like two separate events almost, because the environment around me changes so much. So it's been several streams that I felt this way. And like, when was it? What were we talking about? Because it's totally different. Another thing, yesterday we had so many people and new people. And that kind of was whoa for me, a little bit different. And today the beginning was also very strange with a ton of trolls. So I was just like really all over the place in my mind a little bit. But we made it. We uncovered everything really well. Let me show you the dress before we do the recap. So that's the concept. You see, I put this placket here as the first slit here, and also there will be this feature here. I need to stitch it all, and there's a little loop where you can hang some accessories. So that's what I was working on. And then the top I needed to shrink here, and shrinking it here was not possible without changing these darts, because if I just shrunk the top here, the darts, you know, they account for the waist. So if I just shrink it here, the top becomes of this shape, creating bubble here. So I needed to cut the whole top off, and it's lined, so there's linings. There are two tops. I cut it all, changed the darts, changed the side seams here, shrunk this part, but then also shrinking this part led me to, instead of having this very straight, nice line, it used to be like this, straight. Now it's all like boom, boom, and goes down. Because it also, imagine you're attaching two pieces that go like this. If you cut the segment of the triangle like this, That was the original design from the side of the top, right? And then you take this segment, pretty big piece of this segment, you cut it out, and now what you do, you're stitching this piece to here, like this. So what you do, you smoothen it out, like this. What happens? You're losing some of this height, which is the privacy. So it was a balancing game. But yeah, this is what I've done. But then this, you see, if I cut this, the waist was fitted. Now, all of this distance, I needed to take off this dart here. So I needed to open the darts and loosen them up. And that was such a willpower to me. You know, when you're sewing, when it's just a creative process, when you have an idea and you streamline everything, that's very fun and cool. But then there are willpower moments. When this happens, and that's when you sit on this project and wait for the good day to finally take care of it. Okay, because I was thinking I missed. No, you didn't miss it, Kiva. Many new people was overwhelming, but very cool. Yeah, Tuesday magic. And Tuesdays actually once I had 1.7, then 2.5 or something like 2.5. Then yesterday we had almost 9,000 viewers, with concurrent being 50. Today it was hardly. I had 0 viewers sometimes. I guess people were like dropping in and out, all of them. So it was interesting. Something to do with how I titled the video, I think. Or maybe my photograph on the thumbnail was not enticing enough. Who knows? So, you made your own dress? Yes. Then do you tailor your clothing? Yeah. I do tailor my clothing, and that's a very rewarding thing because you can make fitted clothes that feel like pajamas. They're very comfortable. I have trousers that are fully fitted to my figure. Well, I mean, they have a little bit of breather room, but they're without any elastane whatsoever. And I can do gymnastics in them, which is super cool. And made the suit. You saw me in blue checkered jacket and pants. But yeah, this dress is actually easy. I needed this willpower here because I wanted to execute this placket here. I'm actually wearing shorts from my previous sewing, so don't worry for privacy. This placket here, I executed 2 layered ones because I wanted to make concealed buttons, because I want to have the slit in the dress that can close in and out. I can control it a little bit. So that was the idea. But then I miscalculated the width of the internal placket where I would want to make buttonholes, and they don't overlap with the opposite side very well. So, yeah, I don't know what to do with that. But that was my morning project. Sewing is interesting. Yes, I see what you mean. Madam, I actually haven't done sewing for a while, but understand what you mean. Cool. Yeah, sometimes I remember I was walking my dog in the previous apartment complex where I lived, and made friends with one guy, and I told him that I'm sewing. And he's like, how do you actually sew? I described to him, oh, he said, so actually, it's all like inside out. Like, so there's like different perception of sewing in many people. Sometimes the concept of darts, for example, becomes surprising, how it works, how it shapes the 3D things. Sometimes that the fact that you're sewing from the inside side and how you're folding things to put stitches in becomes surprising. So yeah, it's fascinating field though. Last time we were talking about the trick shots and shit, but watching the stream didn't have the chat. Didn't have the chat? I think I always set it up. I don't know. I need to check. You inspired me to get a dry erase board. Nice. Leaving chat real quick, or I'll forget. Drinking right now. What's going on today here, Lady Lake Bath? What's going on today? I guess you will have to watch the replay because we're wrapping up. The serious tailoring that you do is most impressive, Nastya. The most complicated project I've ever done was a creation of a shirt that they found in Viking Age trash dump. Pretty simple. No, actually, archaic clothing, yeah, was pretty square, I guess. Without much tailoring. They were achieving some fits by tying things around largely, right? There's always a sewing solution when there's complications with adjustments like a puzzle. It's so weirdly enjoyable. With certain things, though, it becomes nuts. But yeah, it's always like I always end up having just enough allowance in my parts to be able to accommodate some mistake, but not nearly enough to afford several mistakes, let's say. I guess subscribed already, but didn't remember. Never mind. That'll happen. Quick reviewing one last time to make sure I don't have any questions. Okay, let's do the review today. So, what we've covered today. 2 topics. Leaving, dysfunctional, systems, inspired by our S95 or S25 from the previous stream. Unfortunately, he didn't show up. I really wanted him to show up because I devoted this whole thing to him. And then we also uncovered the topic of facets of personality. And for those who were not attending, these 2 surprisingly flow into each other. Of personality. And to recap, what were we talking about here? In the first topic, we were talking about creating an absurd art house movie about the system that you're in to reinforce your understanding that the system that sucks your vitality, that system that takes your treasure and dumps it somewhere, indeed a system that will never change. Because when we approach something not through just like, okay, I read this passage, good to know. This is one way of cognition. When we read something and build upon that, this is where our brain starts understanding things profoundly. So the principle that we used here for leaving the system through creating an absurd movie out of the situation that you live in the system was to utilize creative use of observation. Observations, experiences, analysis. So it goes beyond the analysis. We creatively use it, turned into absurdity, and also we crank up our energy. Crank up energy, because when we're dealing with absurdity, when we are dealing with something that is so hurtful, this is where we start noticing where it hurts us the most. We create this, we build the absurdity, we build the most crazy scenario that the system can play to understand, by this amplification, to understand what it actually gives to us, what it does to us, this system. Actually, Electric Aura, watch the beginning of this video if you missed it, because there are some concepts that you might also be able to apply. You crank up energy through absurdity, and you derive this persona of a filmmaker. The filmmaker doesn't participate. the filmmaker watches, understands. The filmmaker creates. It's a joker. It's the person who can play with the system. Engage with the system only in some equivalent exchange, as opposed to donating their all into that system, whose purpose is only to pump energy and exist. So this was our tool, filmmaker. Then we uncovered this persona of filmmaker, whatever it will be for you, I don't know how you will feel it. You will, through this filmmaker, through very charged persona, you will be able to unlock the whole freedom, whole new freedom, through this tool, leaving the system. Because leaving the system is something that hurts. And we always start our therapeutic work with something that hurts the most. That's the easiest for us to get in touch with. So we build that filmmaker who now owns their treasure. Through that experience, we can start working also. What if there are other treasures? What are the systems that hurt us less? This was the dominant hurtful system that was appropriating our treasure. Are there systems where I'm still getting drained, still get affected, less painfully, but still my energy is not, either I don't receive something from some system that I want because I'm not willing to play the role that's required there, or I'm rejecting the system, or that I want to be a part of, or I'm just pissed off, some background pissed off of some system or some traits. So what we did the work on creating a table. Kiva knows. We created a table in which we start analyzing different personas or some characters, I don't know, movie characters, celebrities, parents, partners. We made whole database of those personas, associations, and wrote down their qualities, how we could describe them, or not even how we could describe them, throw some keywords there. We were throwing some attributes of these people, how they behave, what triggers us. What are the notable traits of these people? We created this table and start analyzing it. And then another approach here is when we live in the paradigm of different traits, different personas, some of them we don't legalize, some of them we're disgusted by. Some will feel envy for, desire them strongly, want to confiscate them from someone. We have this gradation of from disgusting to bad to neutral to good to desired, something unattainable. So we flip this pyramid. After working with this table, we can fill this thing, identify what's disgusting, bad, neutral, good, and desirable, and then we need to flip it on the side and even it out and turn this into zero hierarchy thing that we can just access. I want to flirt with someone. I'll be flirting from my most flirtatious role. I want to be a creative, thoughtful artist. I'm going to access the role in which I'm thoughtful, creative artist. I want to access the role in which I can talk to some bureaucratic agency and not lose my nervous cells. I'm going to enter that role. So we functionalize all of them. I want to exercise, I want to achieve success, but I'm, for example, scared of aggression. I'm finding the way to use my aggression in the way that will allow me to achieve success, as if in my infringement on the world, as if in me exercising my will upon the world. This is what leadership is. I allow this to myself. This can be a functional form of aggression. So I analyze this table. I take all of these attributes that have a lot of potential, disgust, bad, or desired, all of these potentiated things. I think, how can I extract the core of these roles without any concepts? Because aggression can be a disgusting drunk man who is just trying to, I don't know, let me get into the room. Or aggression can be some, I know, Beyonce on stage. Some example that everyone will be familiar with, right? Pop culture example. Beyonce on the stage who does rah is also aggressive, but it has an aesthetical form. It has some form that charges people with more like positive energy or productive energy, let's say. It's not the aggression that makes you scared. It's the aggression that's communicated properly such that it charges people up. But the source of energy is the same. So that's what we do here. We flip this pyramid and we remove the harmful context of these things and we flip it here. Yes, the girl who is, for example, doing, excuse me at work will probably be irritating. But the girl who does, excuse me, could you help me please, on a date will be a totally appropriate thing. So if you, for example, felt disgust to that, at work, remove the context, remove the impression that it's inappropriate, put it here. I can use that. I can actually use that and I can bring it to the day, to my next day, and get immediate gratification that will align with my goal right now. Other examples there. We talked about that example of sex worker. How can we take the archetype of fully derailed and very unfortunate sex worker who is likely, we imagine, dominates men for her clients? How can we take that and turn it into function? We can legalize this feminine aggressive. We can legalize feminine boundaries and representation of sexuality fully and strip away social context, but make it beautiful. We can make it in our own terms. We can take that energy that has no attributions, that has no concept. We can legalize that for ourselves in the form we desire, in the beautiful form that we envision for ourselves. So everything can be, in fact, an inspiration. An alcoholic, for example, some like woman who lives in the slums, alcoholic woman living in the slums and reproducing like a cat. What can we take from that woman? The ease. She births children very easily because she doesn't have a concept about it. We can look at her and be like, oh my God, what is she doing? Like breeding into poverty. Oh my God. What her kids will experience. But what does she do good? She births with ease. She doesn't have any concept about it. And that's exactly what's needed for easy birth sometimes. To feel ease about it. So we can take anything and put it in our toolbox when we strip the context, when we become open to working with these traits and features. We can separate them from the concept and look at them factually. What works? What works? What triggers? What works? How I could use it? Designing a toolbox. So this was our main topic. And then we were doing case studies. We talked a little bit about BDSM and control, the issue of control, how just taking control is not the holy grail. We need to also know how to manage control, because excessive control can lead to dysfunction just as much as absence of control, and how inclination to experience, to appeal of BDSM practices can actually be an indicative of what type of work we need to perform and how Tantra can help with that. Covered that topic. And then we're working on the issue of case study, guilt splitting up with a dysfunctional friend. How to manage that? Why does this bond happen in the first place? Why is it a priority bond? Uncovered that. And I think that was the core of today's talk. Choreography, yeah. You have a long rectangle with a, screwdrivers, Choreography is always top tier. Thank you, Kiva. Is everyone who drinks a disgusting drunk man alone after work in my part when I drink? Not everyone. There was actually one person I told in one of the streams that passed away recently that was drinking every night as a lone man, and the alcohol didn't change them much. Of course, it stripped away part of their personality because, I mean, alcohol was doing something, otherwise, they wouldn't be drinking. But there were people, there are people who change drastically or when they drink, and myself, I witnessed those things of total, I don't know, demonic thing happening. So that was the example. Reproducing like a cat, and depends on how much you drink, yeah. But that would be the experience that a lot of people have. For example, with that aggressive man who's under influence, who doesn't control themselves, just pure aggression without any super ego, without any controls in place. That would be a lot of children's impressions of that, I would say. With everything that comes alongside with it. I don't know, mom screaming, some other people screaming. Yeah, alcohol can absolutely bring out a person's demon, so to speak. It's almost unbelievable sometimes, very troubling, yeah. Drinking alone is sometimes an early warning sign. Yeah. So, the cap is my favorite part of live streams. Much appreciated. Hope it wasn't too much to ask. No, Kiva, it's really good for me too because it puts everything together. Otherwise, I will leave the stream without feeling. It helps me to feel accomplishment there. So it's a pleasant practice. As I said, with these new changes, with turbulence with the algorithm, like how yesterday it was absolutely intense stream, for example, and then with daylight switching to nighttime in the middle, it literally just shifts me so much. And in general, also there are interesting effects with me doing this streaming. And also encountering people's stories, they sometimes become so captivating and so engaging that I also tend to forget what it all started with sometimes. So bouncing back and putting it all together is very good practice. Okay. So, I guess we're done here. And I'm going to wrap up. The recap is super handy. When life gets in the way, and most of the stream is missed. Yes. So, let's ciao cacao, and I'm going to go probably make something for dinner. Today is thanks, appreciated. Thank you, Lecticore. Stick around, Lecticore, because every stream perhaps will showcase certain facets of my work, certain facets of what I'm about. And there are always some helpful things that come from people's questions, that come from some comments, spontaneous things happen. So it might be an interesting path. So, Roydran, I knew here, enjoyed being here. Welcome, Roy. Thank you so much. By the way, for new people, I'm streaming Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 5 p.m. New York time. Thank you so much, Kiva. Thank you. Спасибо, мадам, за стрим. Получила огромное удовольствие. Ты, как всегда, яркая звездочка, и слова твои золотые. Thank you so much, Kiva. Kiva. Thank you. Thanks so much, sister. Hope everyone has a great night day. All the best. Please translate. It will be our little secret chat. Что ты тихая? Что случилось? Мой песик пришел. Что ты тихая? Что-то налипло? Что так? Отдай, отдай. Ага, ага, ага. Ага, ага, ага. Пупсик мой. Пупсик мой. Ага. Voodoo Pops. Basically meaning thank you for the stream. I enjoyed immensely. You know, it's a shining star and your words are pure gold. Thank you, Kiva. Бабаха моя. Барабаска. You are now leading the stream, Кузьмич. Давай. Say something. Расскажи что-нибудь. Тихнул. Мой мороз. Что ты, Ка? Что затираешь? Что случилось? Апча. Тихни уже. Ай. Наркозник. Ням-ням-ням. Secret for someone. Okay. Кусь, что там ты застряла? Probably got some hair in his mouth. I've been on too many Russian streams, I forget. Кузенька. Ну хватит. Что там такое? Hug little Кузя. Тебе обнимашки сделали там. Пойдешь на ручки, обнимашки? I made some Russian comments for fun on last stream, but I had to Google to make sure they're accurate to know to how they talk. Thank you, Chad. Yeah, I appreciate that, Don. It's really cool that you guys are so on board with Russian. It's amazing. Pop friendo. Все, у тебя там волос отвалился? Все нормально? Да. Ты пойдешь еще показываться на камеру или нет? Будешь там сидеть? Ну, посиди там. Alright, so, any questions, any concerns, anything that we need to discuss before I leave? Also, another thing, guys, leave your questions under the stream. If you have any relevant topics to discuss, please leave them in the comments to the stream, and we will bring them up. I forget to tell this, but that's something that can be done as well. So if there are no questions, no comments, then I'll see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. And I don't know what we're going to be discussing yet, but there surely be something interesting. So come and think if you have any questions, bring them up. 5 p.m. New York time tomorrow. Bye bye, guys. I'll review it for a fourth time to see if there's a question I can think of after stream. So good night. Thank you, Chad.